What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Salt Mine. This is Season 4, Episode 21. We're still ticking up in Season 4 until we get to the NACL regular season.
We're almost there. We're
when we do
almost
power
there. We got like a
rankings-
month left. Like
Power rankings for
Sticking to
NACL.
traditions.
That'll be when we hit number 5. Throwing together a quick episode here with Slayer and Quax as we have the open qualifiers for the last 3 spots in the league kicking off this weekend. Doublelift and his team near airport are going to be driving all the viewership, but we have got a lot more information about the remaining 63 teams. Got some new teams that have come up in the last couple of weeks since we recorded an episode, so just want to sit down with the boys and take a few minutes to chat about some rosters that stand up to us. But what's going on, guys? How are you doing?
Well, we got to get one thing out of the way very quickly that Gordo so graciously skipped over. NA near airport may be taking a lot of the viewers, but a lot of the other viewers are going to be on the mainstream. And the mainstream will be featuring Salt Mine's none other co-host. Gordo made it. He's on the main broadcast. Woo, Gordo!
Thank you very much, Slayer. Thank you very much.
Well deserved.
yeah, I'm glad you plugged that in there. I'm glad you plugged that in. I would have forgot, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much. No, we're really...
We glazed Slayer when he went on LPL English. We now glaze Gordo when he...
Yeah, I mean, at least like this one's more important. It's directly related to
this
podcast.
is what I was going to say, man. This is the year that TSM goes official, right? We got me on the NACL broadcast. We got clips of Slayer being posted to the LoL Esports channel without attribution. We got...
I'm glad you added in that last part.
Yeah,
I was going to do it for you.
No credit given. But
we're all over Riot products.
But we
year,
give the
right?
credit. That's the important part.
Yeah,
we give the credit
yes.
to you for them. Well, not for them, because I feel like no, we don't do shit for them. What? They don't deserve it. But yeah, no, actually, huge congratulations to you, Gordo. It's fucking awesome, dude. There's no other way to splice it.
Thank you very much, both of you. It's it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I will not be on the first weekend. I'll be holding down Aegis alongside Slayer for the first
And honestly, I mean, not to knock against the first week, but it's a little bit more Mickey Mouse. I think everyone is kind of coming. Like you get to cover the hype, cool shit, and you get to skip the boring, one-sided, like 15-minute matches. Like Slayer, remember like a year ago when we did that cast where it was like Maryville, or it was like Winthrop versus like University of Minnesota Duluth, who was like platinum players, and they were literally killing them between tier 1 and tier 2 tower. It's gonna be like. Yeah, we had nothing. Like, what do we talk about? Like,
what is Quax's job here? One team has 12k gold at 12 minutes.
Gold wins you games.
Gold wins games.
Yeah, no, that'll be fun. I mean, it was originally spread out more evenly, but Henry 4x4 is out of town the last week, so shout out to him. And give
so you'll be able to cover the teams that literally make it in.
Gordo will be.
I believe the way it works out is that 4x4 will be play-by-play on the days that the first 2 teams make it in, but I will be there for the final.
You'll be there for dude.
Gordo
that's good because literally all of the attention will be on that last match. The last promotion slot will be the only game that day because I believe the upper bracket ends on day 4, and then the lower bracket for the last spot ends on day 6. So it'll be the only match. So you will have like 100 million, 1,000 billion people watching you, especially if like you really want it to. Near airport is one of those teams.
I do really hope. I am fingers crossed. I really want a near airport elimination match in there somewhere. It'd be a lot of fun.
Well, do you want them to get eliminated?
Yeah, I think
Gordo
I do.
wants them out.
Yeah. I just need to put it on the record. I need to put it on the record that you want their ass out.
It feels like a proxy war for everybody who just shits on tier 2 and tier 3.
I'm in that same boat.
The scene, you know.
But I feel like there are like advantages and disadvantages to like letting in a team like that because like on one hand it'll probably drive the viewership for tier 2.
Yeah, it'd be good for tier 2. I think to have them there.
But it would be really, really cool to show North America that you're like, it would be like, so many people have this, like, in my opinion, just this false narrative that North America has no talent. If a team or rather 2 teams, because it's double elimination, were to knock the fuck out of near airport and not let them qualify, that would prove everybody wrong. It wouldn't help our viewership, and people will probably still go right back to saying North America has no talent, despite the fact that they have literal 2 VODs of evidence at this point to say otherwise. But we, the truthers on the salt mine, will know it as fact. So there you go.
Yeah, I know we said we were going to talk about teams. I guess that point is probably a good place to bring up the other news that dropped this week, which is that the age requirement to play in OQs was randomly raised from 15 to 17 without anyone really knowing. I'm still not convinced that this was even on purpose.
I hope this gets changed, to be honest, because I part of me really hopes this is an oversight. But like, let me just give everybody who's watching like a perspective on how, like, imagine this was implemented like 4 or 5 years ago, right? Like, players that would not be here had that rule been implemented. We wouldn't have JoJo probably. Like, as soon as, like, we wouldn't have JoJo at least as soon, right? We wouldn't probably have like Danny, right? We probably wouldn't have had Masu. We probably wouldn't have had Jan. All of the Sniper. We wouldn't have had Sniper, guys. You like Sniper, don't you? Yes, you like Sniper. We wouldn't have had. Come on, give me some other names.
You covered a lot of them.
You're touching on the big ones here. Yeah, I mean,
we wouldn't have Ayla. We wouldn't have Ayla. We wouldn't have Tomo.
I don't know if that's true. I think Ayla came over after he was already 17 plus.
Maybe.
What about Cryo? Would we have Cryo?
No, Cryo wouldn't have been able to be on Fly Challengers last split when he was
17. Cryo, like
a lot of players. So yeah, what I think needs to be emphasized here, right, is it's not just about guys who literally play in the NACL at 16 and then go pro at 17. It's that even players who go pro at later ages have frequently been at least playing in the ecosystem since they were 15 or 16. Like, having it be the exact same age as LTA just does not make any sense. It does directly put us at a competitive disadvantage with Korea and Europe, who are, of course, having players start much younger than that.
Literal, like, child soldier age.
And look, if we implemented a global rule that was like, now it's 18 to go pro, 17 to go semi-pro, whatever, that would be one thing. It would suck for players that are currently engaged in those levels, but it would be contrary to how a lot of esports has historically run, but whatever. At least it would be consistent. Like, the fact that it's just putting another notch, because the fact that this rule is going into place and we're still going to have 17-year-old Koreans who have been playing for 2 to 3 years brought into the North American ecosystem as imports is just going to make that even harder.
We wouldn't have we wouldn't have Instinct because he started at like 15.
True.
We wouldn't have him. Okay.
True.
This is going to be a reoccurring. How about this? Reoccurring theme on this episode is I am just going to sporadically bring up players that would not be here if that rule was like that. It has to, like, people, this has to happen. I'm sorry, but it has to happen.
Either way, to finish, if anybody's curious about why we keep saying we think it's an oversight or we think it was an accident. So the section of the rules about age requirements references another section of the rules and says, complies with the age requirements in section 8 point whatever. And if you go to that section, it says LTA players have to be 17 when they play their first game, which has always been the rule for LTA. So it's possible they just copy-pasted sections of the rule book and, accidentally made this rule. But it's being enforced by the TOs, and rightfully so, by the way. Props to the TOs for reading the rule book. That's not their fault.
That's not on them.
But I mean, the rule's being enforced, and the OQ starts this weekend, and registration is closed. So there's no 16 or 15-year-olds in here. So like it's law. It's happened. At least for this OQ. So hopefully. Hopefully that's considered an oversight and changed. I mean, that just sucks to take, to make us even less competitive and take opportunities away from prospects who already kind of get a short end of the stick in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, obviously we don't have like a lot of examples to pull from for like future talent, right? Like, one player that I feel like I love shouting his name out whenever I can, because I feel like so often we kind of can't see the light at the end of the tunnel for players that will eventually be superstars or potentially could be superstars. But like Season of Leaves, I know you guys know who that is. He's like
supposed to be able to start next year.
He's like 14, supposed to be able to start next year. Now he's fucked. Like that's messed up. Like obviously we don't have many other examples of like players that are now gatekept from competition because of this rule, because you know they're young.
But like that's usually how it goes, right? I think normally there would be, and maybe even, you know, low key. I don't. It's not like you submit a government ID when you apply to play in this OQ, right? So you know, maybe even still there is, but assuming that there wasn't this rule, right? There's some high schoolers, 15 and 16, sitting in some of the bottom tier teams that are like going to show out here and are going, you know, it will eventually be that, you know, there's a million names in this 64 team OQ that we do not know. But that doesn't mean...
and that's it. That's what makes it super exciting. Honestly.
Yeah, but like, you know, that doesn't mean there's not, you know, a guy out there that could be impressive. If given more of an opportunity, and those players are, you know, not even going to really be able to start here in the future potentially. So that'll be unfortunate. We'll just have to house them all over the ACL in the meantime.
Yeah, let's go. Come over here. Yeah.
Once we get started up.
All right, so I figure then we could, I mean, I guess we could just kind of get talking about the teams, because the last time we recorded was right when we got news that Doublelift was competing, right?
Yeah, it was right around
Since then, Doublelift's team has, you know, more on Doublelift's team is that they have scrimmed, right? Like we have like results on these guys and how well they're actually doing, like where could they realistically place? Because like you said, Gordo, these are the guys that will be pulling the most eyes by far, right? Like there are other teams from other organizations that will have a lot of appreciation and a decent amount of viewership, and the official channel will probably have a good amount of viewers as well. But like, to be honest with you, Near Airport is doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of viewership. So like, how are they doing, right? Like realistically. So we have 4 or 5 scrims on record, which is like, I believe their first scrim was Supernova / Ole Miss. They lost that 2-3. Then they played against Respawn, right?
4-1. They
won 4-1 in favor of them. Then they played against...
Was that Pulse next, or was Pulse fourth?
I feel like there's someone in between them and Pulse.
They played Tempest.
Well, they played Tempest, but I don't know if we know the results a lot.
I think they narrowly won that one.
Yeah, I think it was 3-2 over Tempest, and then I think they got 4 against.
And then they got ass blasted by Pulse, which I you know, self-insert, self-glaze. I got to cast that. But you like, that was actually a really fun series to cast, because it did give you a good perspective into how good this team could be. And like, realistically, people are anticipating that these guys make it into tier 2. Like obviously a lot of their fans are saying, oh, they'll make it into NACL. Will they? Because I don't think I'm really, you know, breaking any new ground here when I say Polestar and Supernova. I guess I can rope them in there because they lost to Supernova. Those guys aren't going to be a top team in NACL, most likely, right? Obviously, you know, can always be wrong. But like, if you're losing scrims to these guys, then I feel like, I feel like the validity of saying they'll easily get into NACL is a bit naive, because if you look at the evidence kind of points to them being really a gatekeeper team, in my opinion. Like almost a team where if you can beat them, you can get into the NACL. If you can't beat them, you can't.
Yeah, so for me, and I know I was talking to, I can't remember if this was on the Coast stream I did with Grapes, or if it was before at some of the other.
That was hilarious, by the way. You guys are hilarious.
Yeah, that was fun. Was that like, I think it's a fair assessment. I'm more so leaning towards the idea that like, that if they do make it, they're probably like the highest ceiling they have is like a middle NACL team.
7. I give them 7th.
Yeah, so that's fair. I do see the counter argument for people who think, because like guys like Grapes, I'll tell to run back. I'm sure he's talked about it, and if he hasn't, get exposed, Grapes. Thinks that like they could be as good. They could be good enough to challenge, not beat, challenge Maryville and Luminosity. Which I know does sound some ludicrous, but I think the logic that he used is fair because if Double If's team approach playing in Tier 2, playing the qualifier in a mental state that they had when they were pros, I think they can reach a ceiling that high. I think they can. But I don't necessarily believe yet that Double Lift and the rest of this, near airport squad are going to be scrimming and playing like they were when they're pros. I think they're like probably going to half and half it. Like it's going to be somewhat content based and it's going to be somewhat playing as hard as they can based, which is why I think if they do promote, which I think I'm still expecting them to, I don't know. We'll get into it more, but if they do promote, they'll probably end up like a bottom half team that gets tired of how grueling NACL might be and and starts getting a little dysfunctional. But what I'm trying to say here is I think there's a wide range. I think no team quite like Near Airport has enough of a wide range of outcomes, in my opinion.
I'm glad you actually brought up them versus Maryville, and Graves can get exposed right the fuck now. They got ass blasted.
This could have been before this Maryville scrim happened too. So
today, I know.
Okay, yeah.
But new evidence to this case. Okay, because this is criminal. This is a criminal take. So I need to present evidence. They got their shit rocked hard. So listen, I'm not saying that they can't do okay in the NACL. I am just saying Luminosity and Maryville are completely out of their league, in my opinion.
Which is fair. Yeah.
Like at this stage, right? Like they've been
especially at this
give
stage.
them time to scale.
Yeah.
The question is, I think that, and that is the question, right? Is how hard do they practice and how much better do they get? And does TF Blade hit some kind of weird ceiling? It feels like he's a little unlocked now that lane swapping is a little bit less effective in the very early stages. He's done fine in one-on-ones and stuff as well. In response to what Slayer was saying, I do think you still have to have Near Airport towards your top 3. Just because I think your number 4 has to be respawned. I can't really justify a non-respawned number 4. And Near Airport's already beating Respawn on both are very early, and both can grow and change by the time they play there. But as of right now, I think you have to consider Near Airport a top 3 team in this OQ.
The thing is, according to rumors, which I feel is fine to say on this show,
sure,
rumors are saying that Respawn has like a 95% scrim win rate or something like that. Like these guys are demolishing every scrim they come across.
That's Tempest. It's me from the grave. That's Tempest, not Respawn.
Really?
I did hear that about Tempest. I did not know if it was true about Respawn or not.
Regardless, I've heard Respawn is doing good in scrims. So I don't know. I think Respawn is also just a team where if you're gonna use the logic of over time a team can get better, I feel like that will definitely apply to Respawn, right? Because Sushi Mixture are 2 people that have worked together in the past. Philip, Chad, and Shochi are they're perfect. They're pros. They've been in Tier 2 before. And I don't doubt their ability to get into that mindset and to really mesh with whoever or whatever situation they find themselves in. So I think that this is also a team that could easily get better. If I'm being completely honest with you, despite the scrim record win rate, I would put Respawn over Double If's team if I'm being completely honest with you.
Well, then I think you can justify having Near Airport not in top 3.
Yeah. I think Near Airport's going to get close. But I don't think they're gonna.
Well, so let's talk about who the real favorites are then, because we have we just referenced Tempest Gaming, who I have also heard have a very, very impressive.
We have not named my real contender.
I'm gonna name.
I'm speeding towards it.
Your contender is probably everybody's contender.
Yeah. We've talked about Tempest Gaming and their very high scrim win rate. I think they have to be up there as well. But then Citadel Gaming, the newly announced squad of Philip, Armeo, Bradley, Instinct, and Trevor, coached by Nova, they've got to be the number one favorites.
They're the number one.
I think this
by
team
by far.
Yeah, really geared up. It's just the combination of a guy like Armeo, who's really proven to be incredibly dominant at the tier 3, tier 2 level. Yeah, he's coming back after some time off, but like I'm so less nervous about one guy like that than I am about 3 to 4 guys like that are on your airport.
And
then
the thing
Philip
is,
and Bradley and Instinct are dominant players at the tier 2 level. They will be incredibly dominant at the tier 3 level. This is going to be very similar to what we watched Bradley, Instinct, and Trevor do on CCG. When they totally ran OQs. I would argue this team might even be stronger than that team with Philip and Armeo.
So this was a discussion that Grapes and Hawk had on the newest Salty Runback episode. Go watch that if you haven't, by the way. They're our brothers in podcast. But yeah, I mean, realistically, I think if you're looking at like Philip versus Crimson and then Armeo versus Yukino,
it's not close enough.
Oh yeah, they're definitely stronger on paper, but the question is, are they stronger relative to the competition?
I actually don't necessarily agree that they're outright stronger, to be honest with you, Slayer. I think they are I think it's a different ball game, right? Like Philip and Armeo are really good at being able to hold their own, and they are a lot more experienced and macro based players. Like one of my main criticisms of Armeo whenever he enters LT or whenever he entered a tier 1 league and wasn't able to keep up with any of the other junglers was that he just didn't seem like he had the hands to do so. But he's got the fucking brain. I mean, this guy has been a coach before and he's shown that he has the brain. So I feel like in a macro sense, having Armeo in your corner to just be able to outthink every other team in tier 3 and tier 2 is super valuable. Philip, in my opinion, was the unsung hero of Fear last year, simply because you could put him in about any lane situation you wanted, and he would come out and be relevant, right? Like, it didn't matter if he was in a counter matchup, if he got literally no jungle attention, if he got spat on by his entire team, IRL, in-game, doesn't matter. He'd still make a comeback and be able to play with his team. Whereas I think Crimson and Yukino were more of the resource hoggers on that CCG squad. Right, so you're kind of comparing, I feel, two different styles. They're equally effective, but they're different, which is why I feel it's hard to say one is better than the other, because the teams are going to, at least in my opinion, they're going to operate differently from one another, despite having 3/5 of the same pieces.
Those are fair stylistic arguments. The problem for me is you said the issues you had with Armeo was on a tier 1 level, and this is going to be tier 3. And
that's true.
And then Philip, I only watched him get dogged by one top laner last NACL, which was Zamudo. And Zamudo is like...
Zamudo's next up.
Like next up, yeah. So,
yes.
So yeah, but no, I think that's a good point stylistically. I do think that it's going to be interesting to see how Citadel play, because if we do go off champion composition, I agree that Philip is kind of like a less reliant resource guy. Like, he can play like a Renekton. You can play for him, but I do think he's best when he's kind of weak-sided and left his own devices. Bradley's champion pool.
Bradley's going to be the carry here. Bradley's going to be the carry on this team.
Bradley could be the carry. I'm curious what his champion pool looks like, because I think he does play some sort of farm-it-up mages that don't really need a lot of help. And then, you know, and then Armeo, the guy's been playing so long, I think he can have some carry junglers. I'm curious if he's going to play carry junglers in tier 3 and just say, fuck everybody, because that'd be the most fun. That he just like
that would be awesome.
Everybody on like Viego, and he just plays a bunch of Viego games and like Wukong's and Zhao games, like just maybe a Kindred game and runs everybody. But yeah,
I'd just be surprised. I just think I would be surprised if they did. Not that I think he can't. I just think I don't know why you would expose yourself to that kind of risk.
They could probably do anything. If you remember Bradley from CCG, he could literally play anything he fucking wanted, because he was so much better than literally every other mid laner in that tournament, he just win, right? Like Bradley, like Slayer and I, when we casted these guys and they eventually promoted, like we kind of came to the consensus that he could do whatever he wanted and this team would win, right? Because not only were the pieces he was surrounded by good, he was just that much better, right? Like he was by far the best player in that tournament last year, and it's probably not going to be any different this time around. Like I think this OQ is going to be the most stacked OQ we've ever had by far. I don't think that's a very hot take, But I still think Bradley, compared to like Darkwings, Shochi, Ariandel, Sudsy, he should be able to put up numbers even against these guys. So yeah, this team's number one. If you think differently, you're a goddamn liar.
I don't think the team is going to be better. I don't know. Maybe I'm very high on Darkwings after 2024. I might start putting Darkwings on the Bradley level. I guess we'll talk about that somewhere down the line. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
But yeah, no, I agree holistically. And I do want to really quickly shout out, because Citadel as an org are nailing everybody. Mm-hmm. Nova being a coach is an awesome coach. Any Nova team, I'm a big fan of Nova bots. Shout out to him. Even the social squad, they got the old Fear guys. I think Maddie and Mr. Jordan Chong are on that one. So
yeah, Jay Chong, my boy.
Jay Chong's covering all the bases. So yeah, it's hard to not cheer for Citadel now.
My biggest concern though is like them potentially pulling a nightmare later down the line, right? Like, because this team, the consensus is they're going to promote, right? And anytime you have, especially recently, anytime you have these organizations that essentially pop out of nowhere with a squad that looks like it could like challenge Jesus Christ, then I get really concerned, because the question is not, are you going to do well? The question is, can this team be sustainable long term? Right? Because you look across the board, these are good players, right? That's part of the reason why we say they're going to win, or it's all the reason we say they're going to win. But once they get into NACL, they'll do well, but the financials of NACL are completely different. So that's where I get really worried with a team that is essentially popped up, isn't potentially familiar with the landscape, could be, susceptible to making bad decisions early on. And having a team that is expected to do well, this kind of feels like you just have to nail every step. Because if you don't, you could have a situation where you are either not able to play in the split because you can't afford it, or you just drop out or dip out after one split. And I feel like we've seen that song and dance way too often recently. So I obviously don't know Citadel's situation. Maybe everything I said was wrong. In that case, forgive me. But like, I am just hoping that these guys, on top of promoting, can actually show their stuff in NACL and don't have to worry necessarily about the monetary costs that it takes to actually run a team in Tier 2.
Yeah. I see that concern. Looking around at Citadel, they seem somewhat established. They have some FGC players. It seems like They have a physical location. They're like
that's good. That's always
they're like
really
a
good.
place. Yeah, they're like a a place that hosts tournaments, and I don't know. They're probably like a there's a lot of these places popping up around like the Chicagoland area now. There's just places that have play space and they host tournaments, and you can give them $30 and go play on a PC for a few hours. It's like a little LAN cafe kind of deal. Much more common in other countries than in the United States.
Say
but
10 years behind Korea on that one, but we're here.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
you can't walk down the street in Korea without seeing a PC bang.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
actually,
it seems like
I actually
Citadel's
read
one
somewhere,
of those in Michigan.
I read somewhere actually that the FF rate, maybe this was DPM on Twitter, but the FF rate at Korea is
it's insane.
Way higher than any, because the Korean players don't. Yeah, because the Korean players don't want to waste their time playing a game that's lost when they could just go for it, because they're on a time crunch to play as much as possible because they pay to play.
Yep.
Which I don't know. I just figured I'd throw that in there because I thought it was funny. Anyway, moving on. Another team that a lot of people are talking about, behind Citadel, behind Near Airport, behind Tempest, behind Respawn, is Galaxy Gaming. So formerly known as Shemake, which they had to change because I believe there was a rule that said you could not have a team name that wasn't English. So yeah. I am really interested to see how this team actually does, because I think a bot side of Ariandel, Anoribi, and Kimdown on paper is super strong. Like Ariandel to me was easily one of the most easily one of the most distinct and defined mid laners in the tier 3 space during the latter half of the year, right? Like I really felt like this guy carved out a name for himself. Anori B has done a similar thing, but albeit he hasn't had, the results that someone like Ariandel has had. And then Kim Down, I think, is one of the better supports that was in tier 2 last year. Definitely caught my eye. Was definitely one of the players I was looking the most at whenever I were to watch, like one of TLC's games. Was definitely like Kim Down. So I like this team. My biggest question though is that top side. Obviously, City Witty and Cozy, they just there's concern there, right? Because City Witty, Kaido, whatever you want to call him, he's my Kha'Zix brother. I'm rooting for this guy. You got to believe I'm rooting for this guy. But I just look at especially the jungle pool. Look at these junglers, stacked. Bro. Armeo, Spica, Kisno, Chad. Even the mid-tier teams have really good junglers. Shimmer, Will, fucking Low Jazz, Vakin,
Wiggly's coming out. Yeah, Lemo's coming back. There's
Lemo's coming back. Bio is in here. Cross is in here. Maddie is in here for St. Clair. I like Maddie a lot. These are crazy. This is a crazy jungle stack. And the question is, can Cozy and City Witty punch above what is considered to be their weight class, right?
Yeah, I think I'm not too worried about topside. I just think Cozy and City Witty have a high enough floor that they won't have trouble making a very deep run. But I think that's true for this whole team. So I guess what you're really questioning is, can they level up and win up against other teams in the top 10, top 8 territory?
Yeah.
I think I think Inori beat Kim Down is a bit of a mismatch to me, stylistically. You think about Inori B, and I think he still has. When he has looked the best, when he has looked like he could be an NACL level player, it has been when he's playing his Dravens and his Kallistas, his super aggressive lanes. Whereas Kim Down,
he's gotten a little better at that though. I do have to add that in there.
Yeah, he's gotten better at it, but he hasn't really he hasn't looked like he's that guy. He's the best in tier 3 outside of that meta. And then Kim Down has like made his whole career with playing with Arrow and Spawn. You know, he has not been the Ghost Slam lane carry kind of play style. Yeah. He has been a lot more, you know, of a roaming, you know, play weak side, leave my guy alone to play Ezreal and go and try to have impact in the lanes kind of support.
He did show a little bit. He did show a little bit, I think, more fire and aggression during the Cyto Combine, right? I believe he was an attendee at that. He played aggressively a little bit, like especially in lane. Like I do remember some games that I watched of Kim Down where I was like, okay, you're a little bit more aggressive than I remember you being in NACL. So I do think that he is a player that I think who has played long enough to the point where he can adapt to that. But yeah, I definitely agree with you on a piece of paper looking at these guys. This is definitely a stylistic mismatch. But I honestly think that it could show a different side of either of the players, right? Like, I don't think this is going to be a bot lane combo that's going to meet in the middle. Either they're going to be really aggressive or they're going to be very weak side. And I think regardless of result, having that third dimension to one of the players or potentially both of the players is going to be really good for their long-term career. So that's why I'm looking at them. I'm just looking at how are they going to, you know, change things up? How are they going to play? Because I think I think Inori has the ability to play weak side. And I think that this kind of team constitutes a more strong side bot lane, if I'm being honest with you. So I'm wondering how Kim Down adapts to that, especially with like roaming for supports is just getting nerfed all across the board. Like it got nerfed during this last season. These lane swap changes are nerfing it as well. God bless those, by the way. I know for all of you academic armchair Reddit analysts that are watching the show, yes, I know it can be worked around, okay? Don't yell at me. But I'm still glad it's being implemented anyway. Fuck you. So, yeah, that's I'm just happy because I really like this team. I really like a lot of these players, and although I don't think they're favored to promote, I do think they can be a team that makes a deep run.
I don't know. I'm on the fence. I do think that this team is going to live and die by how much value they get out of Anori and Kim Down. But I'm just trying to think back to like. I guess I get. I feel like there's two sides to claiming they're a mismatched bottom lane, right? Because on one side you got like Gordo, your fair points, but on the other side, I'm like thinking, okay, Kim Down the last couple splits we've seen him has been on a decline with most of his like bottom laners that we would expect would match Kim Down's style, right? Anori B has had really high highs, but you know, some like fallouts with, and you could blame like some of those teams like being part of those BlackRock roster blowups a couple times, didn't always sucked and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you know, Anori has failed to find the consistency that, you know, when he first broke out onto the qualifier scene, that a lot of people were hyped behind him. So I'm almost happy that this bottom lane is a pairing, because in my head I'm going, all right, the expected for these two hasn't been working. So why don't we try a pairing that neither of them are used to, which is like Kim Down with, you know, a young prodigy that needs sculpting, and then Anori B with a like probably his most veteran level support I can think of he's ever had next to him. So I hope they both come out playing Anori B style of AD carry, at least in some of these games. Like I don't think like a Draven Callista player, if you're that kind of player, like you do at this level, you do not need to start trying to like branch out your champ pool. Like for a guy like Scary Jerry, who was like a Callista guy, like when he got to level he did, like yeah, you got to branch out and like learn multiple types of AD carry. But at this level, Anori B, like just get really good at what you're good at and play that through. I hope they come out and like start slamming Callista lanes early before the patch changes come over, and just try and run the bottom lane, because I'm also in agreement with you guys that Ariendel is one of the safest mid laners to leave out. Like there are not going to be any teams, especially early on in this tournament, that are really going to be able to like disrupt Ariendel. I think Cozy's a similar way in his own element in the top side, and then even if like City doesn't need to play towards bot side, like City playing for Cozy is always going to work. The top side's going to be fine. I want this bottom lane to come out swinging if they're really going to have a chance to threaten the 3 promotion spots like we've been talking about. Because they're still on the outside no matter how excited you are about this team.
We'll have to see, because I'd like them to have that flexibility, you know, thinking about them as, you know, maybe a potential future tier 2 team.
Right.
But I think the default, when you have this construction of 5 players, I think the default is you want Cozy playing the Camille's and stuff of the world, Ariendel on like the Gallios, and you want to be going top lane. I think that's like the default play style for this team, which does mean, you know, you're probably leaving Anori B. Either you're leaving Anori B and Kim Down alone together, in which case they may still be vulnerable, or you're roaming up Kim Down and leaving Anori B alone, which can be dangerous given some tendencies we've seen in the past. So we'll have to keep an eye on this team. I'm going to be a little lower than consensus on them, I think, going in. But you know, if everything clicks, they can, and or if some of the top teams stumble, I think there's definitely room for this team to move up.
It is also worth noting they are in, because as of recording this, we have the bracket available to us, right? So it is also worth noting this team has a decently smooth road to actually getting close to qualifying, right? Like if you look at where they are, if you have access to, like, eventually this will become accessible. They don't have like a ton of tough competition, in my opinion. Like the toughest competition they're probably going to face early on in this tournament is St. Clair, right? And St. Clair are really good, but I do think that Galaxy Gaming are favored. I'll say favored. You know what? Fuck it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They're favored. And then like after that, you have the other team that I really want to talk about, who is on the same side of the bracket. And that's Red Note.
And we're back talking about Red Note.
Yep. So there isn't a lot to say about this team. Like, I don't think this team is going to be one that wins it all. Or like, I think that this is a team that will probably get knocked out on day three, maybe day 4. Honestly, like they could make it to day 4. simply because I think their side of the bracket is mega fucking easy. But the moment they start encountering heavy hitters from other brackets, I think they might find it a little bit more difficult.
We said this about Morningstar White, to be fair, and then they never ran into the team of heavy hitters that they couldn't do it against.
Well,
but that team had Soul Never Die on it, which this team does not.
This team, what the fuck is Soul, by the way? But yeah, Red Note to me, like here, so they like as a team, I feel like Red Note. Obviously, the big, like, oh my god player is Yushin, right? Like, Yushin, everybody has been so hyped, myself included, on this guy's return back to Tier 3. Because when he was on Morningstar White, he was kicking people's ass. Like, well-established top laners were getting, like, absolute hand-stiffed by this guy, and he essentially came out of nowhere. Then, he didn't do his taxes, so he got for a year. Now he's back. So... he's back, though, with players that I think a lot of people are really unfamiliar with. Myself, honestly, I'll rope myself in this. I'm not super familiar with the people he's playing with. Like, I've heard of them, but I'm not super, like, oh my god, about these players. Like, I'm not super high. I do know about Minsu, and I do know about AH, or
yeah. Well, AH was, yeah, I'm not sure which one it is.
He was on MSW,
He was on MSW with this team. Yeah, Baco's been around. Baco has frequently been on some of those Misfits teams. The ones that like Cozy would always be on.
I believe Minsu was also on Misfits, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe
wasn't Grape super high on this guy when we did that?
Buell, I thought.
Oh, that was W. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, but Baco was on a lot of those teams. So I recognize him from that. I do not know this mid laner.
Yeah, the mid laner is an unknown for me.
Yeah, but I mean, but so was and slash still is to this day the Morningstar mid laner. I don't even. It was another pair of letters, right? I don't even remember who it was.
The thing about this team, though, and I think the thing that really, the thing about this team, though, and the thing that I think really will be riding, like, will be like this will depend, like this will determine their success, in my opinion, is lane swaps, right? Like, Yushin as a player plays fighters, right? Like, this guy is known for the Gwen, he's known for the Jax, he's known for all of these carry top laners, Fiora as well. I feel like you always have to rope in Fiora when you talk about fighting top laners. But like, lane swap meta has kind of killed the ability to go for a lot of those guys. Like Ambessa is obviously like classified as a fighter. Cassante is just a whole other thing entirely. And you don't have a lot of your Fioras. You don't have a lot of your, like, Jax is manageable in this meta at the current moment. But like, these lane swap changes, I think, really do help players like Yushin, who are looking for that 1v1 top lane to just hand stiff the other top laner. Agreed. And to send them crying. So I think that this is going to turn into a meta that is actually favorable for Red Note, assuming that the other four players, you know, barring Yushin, can actually play what's good in the role, and can perform to around his level. Because if they can do that, then this team might actually get close to qualifying, right? Like, realistically, you go past your bracket, you play one other person, and you are in a qualification. You play one other person, the champion from the other neighboring bracket, and then you are in a qualification match, right? Yep. And then you just have to win one more. So if you're looking at the bracket right now with me, and like you're you know, thinking about the possibilities in your head, I would say Red Note make it all the way to C8, so the top of their bracket, and then they'll probably be playing either St. Clair or Galaxy Gaming in the D4 match, and whoever wins that will go on to qualify. I don't know if these guys can actually beat teams on that other side, because that other side
how can they get into a place where one of Galaxy Gaming, St. Clair, or Red Note qualify? There should be a top 4 team in that. Oh, Galaxy Gaming is third. Galaxy Gaming.
Yeah, Galaxy Gaming's third.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So,
well,
I mean,
it may be possible then if in a Galaxy Gaming like mega collapse, It may be possible then.
It may be. I mean, and if that's the case, then they would be going against. I mean, like, but on the other end, the teams on the other end are just fucking insane. Like, you've got who do you have? Who can I use?
But
as
I mean,
an
to get to a qualification, by the time you're in a qualification match, you should have 2 teams in the top 4 that have made it that far. So there must be a Tempest or a Ducky Getters or a Near Airport in there too.
Yeah, like Tempest is on the same.
Yeah, there has to be.
They will be playing against Tempest potentially. They'll be playing against Fisher potentially. They could be playing against Tempest.
I think Tempest is the big threat to them then.
Yeah, Tempest is going to be their biggest threat if they make it super high. Like if they are in a qualification match, it'll be against Tempest most likely. Yeah, and Tempest are kind of Tempest are kind of a death sentence in my opinion. Like I think this team is insane.
But if you're in a top bracket qualification match, you get to play the lower bracket. But I do think the big difference between this Red Note team and Morningstar White will end up being Soul in the absence of him.
Yeah, I mean,
I think history has made that team the Yushin show because he was both a very exciting player on that team,
and he was the reason they
got DQ'd. Yeah, but Soul Never Die was also gapping everybody that tournament.
Soul was huge. That team was just like that team was a unicorn, man. Like
that's what I'm saying. This is not that team. I don't think, and I'm not going to go in being like, oh, Morningstar White's back, baby, just because Yushin and are here. That's not how it. That's not what I'm coming in expecting.
Yeah.
All right. Let's speed it up a little bit here.
That's my underdog team.
Let's speed it up a little bit here and just chat about teams that we find interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to throw. I mean, go ahead, Slayer. You go first.
Yeah.
I was just for me I'm just intrigued with pairings of players that I've known from tier 3. I'm gonna be a little bit honest. I'm using this as a de facto catch up for myself because obviously I'm not gonna lie and pretend I haven't been focused a lot on where the LPL is at this split. Or where they're split, but just seeing some of these fun pairings and especially teams in the 12 to 20 range, I think there's a lot of pretty intriguing pairings. To see Boil the Oil, Rapid, and Debonair back together on Wang's Goblins is pretty cool. I think Deathwalker also is an underrated player from the last couple of OQs. He certainly stands out. I think St. Clair is still a sleeping giant, but it's the same points about them. Barrick playing with Lycamaz and Nightstar is very intriguing to me. That Barrick is on this roster, but I like Lycamaz. I like Lycamaz a lot and Nightstar a lot. Let's
pause on that team real quick because Dog Fans seed number 10 was one that I was hyped for as well. I've called out King Clueless a couple of times here. I think this guy's stupid good. And has been really held back by some of the teams he's been on. This is the best team he's ever been on by a country mile. I think Lycamaz and Nightstar on that Reluminate team last year kind of showed that they've developed and they're punching above their weight class a little bit. Clueless and Protoss play CLOL together, so on USC, so they are familiar with one another. Barrick is a heavy hitter. He's played in the NACL before. I think he's a good player. So I think this team is going to be slept on, but I think this team could be very, very good. I could see top 8 for this team.
Yeah, okay, so we're on the same page on that. And then the Fantastic 5 roster, I'm always a fan of a Kolthro-led roster. I think, in the vein of what, not to the same degree as what Quax was saying earlier about our Armao, but I think, I would call Kolthro for this analogy a baby Armao, and the fact that I think Kolthro's
I actually agree.
Macro his macro approach to the game is really good. I know he was good enough to be a coach, but I still think he's got the hands to be a player. So having him on the Rift, I always give a team a massive boost. So, and then Geiger has been kind of iffy towards the end of last year. Meslo is impressive. Azog is another veteran, and then Barlow. I mean, there's a lot of old heads. This is kind of an old heads team. So there's always a fun little old heads team to look out for.
There's a decent amount of those in this OQ actually. Obviously you've got third party, you've got Friendly Fellas, you've got YBN1.
If I'm calling Fantastic 5 an old head team, don't look at third party. That's also cool. Seeing Messages back playing pro, really cool.
Yes,
seeing
that's
Lunar
amazing.
and Just playing a bottom lane together, is really cool. They haven't played together in a while. So that team's cool for like storylines. We'll see if they still have the hands. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Here's a big one for you. So everybody's gonna be looking at Ducky Getters, especially because they got a top 4 seed.
You had to let me introduce them, bro. I'm Quax.
You're Quax. Don't worry, I'm not here to talk about the Ducky Getters. All right. While that team is exciting and mega high seeded, not even sure. I guess Vakin and Draco have just been grinding solo
Draco
queue.
has been fucking dude. This guy has been like absolutely demolishing people in solo queue. Like Draco has been insane in solo queue from what I've heard.
Anyway, so Enthralled and Hiccup are back together. They kept the name, but that's not the Ducky Getters squad that I'm looking at. The Ducky Getters squad that I'm looking at is Slated 6. Where Dr. Calculus and Bio have ended up with Utter, Hub, and Tub.
This is my dark horse team. For
this would be my dark horse team, except I don't know a lot about Hub and Tub.
So I do not know. First of all, great duo name. Second of all,
amazing duo name.
Yeah, amazing duo name. I know nothing at all about Tub, but Hub is on my short list.
I know a little bit about Hub.
Hub is on my short list of breakout candidates for this year, players to watch for this year. So I am very excited. I think Hub is quite good. I do not know anything about Tub, but I do think Thin Uncle Phil has done a good job with supports
that's what I was gonna say.
in his tenure, and he is coming in to coach this team.
Yeah,
if you Slated 6 is slept on. Slated 6 could be very, very good in this bracket.
I definitely support the dark horse of Slated 6 for sure. I think Thin Uncle Phil being the coach as well really adds like an aura of like just being able to see these guys like improve as time goes on. Like obviously this tournament is only running for 3 weekends, but like and you know Thin Uncle Phil might not even be around for all of those because it actually says on the documents sheet where we can find all the rosters that he will be a coach until NACL starts up again, and I believe there is some overlap. So, or wait, no, there's not. Is there?
There's some overlap between what? Sorry.
Is there? There's no overlap between.
I don't think there is.
Between
no, because
qualifiers
you're qualifying for NACL. That would be stupid.
No, there's no. Yeah.
No. So, but yeah. So, like, my concern is that he might like toward like the latter half, might like his attention might be split. But I definitely think Slated 6 is a dark horse team as well. Another dark horse team that I want to really quickly talk about is Gravity. Gravity, because you guys, I believe, are going to be talking a lot about them in the future. If I'm not mistaken.
True. We are. We will be very possibly featuring them on Aegis.
Yep. So it's Alorum, Shimmer, Robbie Bob, Sage Wabe, All Calamity. This I think is another dark horse team. I talked in length on the Salty Rumback server about Alorum as a player and what I think he brings to the table in a lot of teams. I think Alorum is one of the best Ditto top laners in the game, where like depending on his team's skill level, he can match that, right? Like he is as good or potentially as bad as his team's skill level. And I do think that this team's skill ceiling is high, like really fucking high. Shimmer and Robbie Bob to me is one of the this is going to be one of the most enjoyable mid-jungle duos to watch. Like maybe they don't win every game, maybe they don't dominate every game, but am I bored is never going to be a question you'll be asking yourself if you watch this team. And so I'm envious of you guys. My biggest concern though is All Calamity, right? I've heard great things about this guy. I have heard nothing but praise for All Calamity. How he meshes with Sage Wabe is going to make or break this team, in my opinion, because I'm not worried about Shimmer and Robbie Bob. I already established I'm not worried about Alorum as long as the other pieces are doing their job. This is the one independent variable where if it falls apart, this team might be lower than what I think a lot of people are expecting out of them.
Yep. Yeah, I haven't heard much about All Calamity, so I mean.
I am also high on All Calamity.
I've heard he's really good.
He is also on my short list of players.
Can I get the sell here then? Can I get the sell, like to understand why?
Yeah, I mean he's peaked like top 20. He's just a very, very high ranked solo queue support.
He follows me on Twitter.
I think
shout out.
He probably follows. He better follow me on Twitter. Following Quax, you gotta be following me.
You better follow me after this weekend.
Yeah. So he just he was on the Gravity roster in OQ2 last split. the one that went 2 and 3. That was like the Spencer Cuz Tooth Booth team. So it's like
wow. So what an upstep! Holy
exactly.
moly.
It's
Okay.
not.
Yeah, holy
It,
shit.
it, it's not. That was not a team of stars. But you know they went 2 and 3. They did all right. But I did not watch any of their games. But there's been a lot of whisperings about El Calamity. People have been hyping this guy up. So I am.
They also have Rourke as their coach, and I think Rourke is a really good coach. This guy beat the shit out of Team Colorcaster in Caster.
Not me.
So don't talk about that.
Yep.
Fuck off.
Yeah. Good solo queue support are 3 words that can get you pretty far in the NA Tier 3 system.
Quax POV. I'm done. I'm done. Keep going.
I mean, there isn't a ton to say about this team. Like, I think that I roped them in with like Slated 6. I feel like Slated 6 might be a little bit better on paper. But like, I do think that Gravity have the potential to really make it far. And then lastly, this is the last team that I'm going to talk about.
Can I say one quick note on Gravity really quickly? I'm excited to see Shimmer play carries on this team. This is the perfect top side for Shimmer.
This is the perfect top side for Shimmer.
He wants to do and just like run jungle. So
he can run things like Volibear. Like I think Volibear, I consider Volibear to be a carry jungler with how fucking strong that champion is right now. Like he could do stuff like that. Like there's
the way jungles build it, yeah.
Yeah, like there is totally a world where Shimmer and Robbie Bob are like Showmaker Canyon, where they are just like both the carries, but they work off of each other super well. So yeah. That's what I'm most excited for. Mid jungle duos as a jungler just make me so happy, man. Especially good ones. Ducky Getters though, this is the last team that I'm gonna plug, and for obvious reasons. 1, Quax. 2, it's fucking Ducky Getters, bro. Everyone loves the Ducky Getters. So it's Draco, Vakin, RJS, Enthralled, and Hiccup. So it's the same bot lane with a different top side because the top side decided to go over to Slated 6, and Rough Beans is God knows where.
He's not here. I don't know, man.
Not here, which is crazy because I think Rough Beans is really good. But yeah, I am really interested to see how Vakin I'm really interested to see how Vakin and RJS actually work, because Vakin to me, I think, and I mean this in the best possible way, right? I'm not trying to roast Vakin, but I think it is very safe to say that when he was in the ACL last split, he definitely was not one of the better players on that team. He was not a guy that carried CCG Glorp across the finish line most of the time, right? So Vakin, I think, is going to have to really step up in this department and play for players like RJS and Enthralled, who they're not Scary Jerry, right? Like you don't have Scary Jerry Zyko on your team anymore. So I think maybe like just to see him after ACL is going to be really interesting. And RJS, obviously, we haven't seen this guy play for a while.
Mirage, right? NACL Mirage?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and that was not a great time for him, I would assume. I don't think I'm breaking any new ground by saying that. But yeah, I think him coming back is going to be really interesting because the mid pool, especially toward like the better teams, is really stacked, right? Like Bradley, Pobelter, Darkwing, Shochi, Ariendel are all really, really good. You could even throw in players like Flocon, Messages, Robbie Bob, Sudsy. Like mid has a decent amount of talent going into this tournament. So how RJS is a player who's been in tier 2 before, but it's been so long that it's honestly just a huge question mark what this guy's been up to since the Mirage Alliance days. So I think if he can be like on the same level of his teammates, these guys could potentially make it far. But I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily consider them a dark horse. But, the worst thing I feel like they can threaten viewers with is a good time. So, if you want to watch them and have a good time, then there you go. This is your team.
There you go.
You go. let's get at least one more team in there. Artist formerly known as Wixie's team, the Friendly Fellas. That's a team to definitely take a look at. It's Moose Hater, Wiggly, and Wixie as I guess the AOE Ginger Turmeric reunion.
That's a throwback.
With longtime sub players Dunn and Tyson at mid and support. So I'm coming in with virtually no footage of Dunn or Tyson. But
Dunn is a streamer, so there you go.
Yeah, but
can I just add real quick before you keep going?
Please.
The funniest thing with this team, the funniest fucking thing with this team was Quest when he was making this doc, and you know, a lot of it was like yellow and red, like not sure where this is like what's happening, what their names are, who's playing. He put Wixie's team and he said Moose Hater ? And then he put Wixie. And then he said in like notes where you see like the coaches, he said, this guy has to be lying or something. I literally couldn't find any information. And it just stayed like that until like the last day. And now they finally have a roster. But it was literally like, I legitimately thought Wixie was full of shit when he said he was going to make an OQ team. I thought this guy was a goddamn liar. It's hilarious to see that he actually wasn't full of shit and this is a legitimate team. Yeah. But this is way before my time. So I like the notes I have on these guys, like I'm out of the loop here for this squad.
Yeah. So we will see how Dunn and Tyson do. As you referenced, Dunn is a streamer. Being a streamer means nothing to me for how well you're going to compete. You know, we've seen guys do well. We've seen guys do poorly. And then Tyson has just been like kind of subbing on teams for the most part over the course of the last couple of years. So I mean, he's very Claritz-esque in that way. That was, you know, Claritz was the guy in that position last time, and didn't work out too great there. So we'll see. We'll see what the conversion ends up looking like. But you know, if those guys show up, if Dunn and Tyson show up and are, you know, like good, like top 10-ish players, which, you know, obviously is a huge ask. But if they are, I mean, then this is immediately, you know, a top 8-ish team.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, like, so somebody to potentially keep an eye on is the Friendly Fellas when we look to see how they're going to be doing. They are seeded 28th, so they are going to start facing some harder competition pretty fast.
Yeah, and then some rapid fire ones that I want to say, like collegiate representation, like CeeLo representation. There's a couple of intriguing teams. I already mentioned St. Clair, who are running their usual roster. UCI. I'm excited to see Rose Thorn and Xiao Danny together as a mid jungle. That will be fun. And then Cerulean's back playing for them, so that's a team to watch for. Saving Private Dozer is also just like a composing of
ISU. It's ISU plus their coach.
Yeah, ISU plus playing mid. So Command Attack's mid. Cross is on that team still, and then Drew Dozer's playing support and Makel 80 with PCL. So we'll see how that comes together.
The other thing about UC Irvine that you bring up, I wonder. So it's Jin Kessie and I think he just goes by Jin. And Cerulean are the starting bot now, as they have lost Gorica Light Pulse, who have been there a long time. Yeah. Those guys both graduated, I believe.
Yep.
So it's like, you know, pedigree-wise, you assume it's a downgrade, but I do think, you know, like, Gorica's been past, like, trying to go pro status for a while now.
It's like a refresh at the very
I'm curious
least,
to see, you know, as they get into this kind of next generation for them. I am curious to see, because this could be their bot lane for a while. So I'm curious.
Yeah, even
to see
Xiao Danny. Danny won't. I don't think how many years he can play more, but like he's never started for UCI. Until
it's always been Cinnamon Bread or.
It's always been Cinnamon Bread or. I'm blanking on the other one. It was, but.
My mind was not Conveying, but that's not right.
And then the other quick shout I wanted to give is to producer extraordinaire of the Salt Minute points. I think PVS is once again in the qualifiers, like we like to talk about. Yeah. But I am
Flippers.
I'm actually excited about his team.
Yeah.
I
Debonair.
like
Debonair is the mid laner you're trying to think of.
Oh, okay, exactly, Debonair. Aj and Wenwen and Lancelot Link, like these guys had good spots in the last qualifier run we saw in the summer. If I'm not mistaken, was Lancelot Link part of the Eliminate team too? I think so. I think it was Lancelot Link.
I don't think
no?
so. I don't
Okay,
think
maybe
so.
I'm switching somebody out. But also, I'm also a fan of the subs they have listed here. Diesel is a well-known tier 3 guy.
Yeah, no, Lancelot Link was on the Illuminate team in the OQ2. OQ1 it was X-Royal.
Okay, so he was there. And
but OQ2
was it two? Was it two when they were top 8? Or
yep, they got top 8
so
with Lancelot Link, Ivan, like a Moss Nightstar, and Sonotic.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. So so Lancelot Link. We'll see how they look. And then this is like the one. Speaking of like the young prodigy conversation here, he was CK CK Reborn. This guy is like a cracked out zoomer, who played in I want to say the Running the Rift combine, and I like randomly watched one of his lobbies, and he played like a nutso Azir. And I was like, all right, I'm curious where this kid will end up landing. So he's subbing for Flippers. That's how you always got to start it, right? He's just subbing on these rosters. So it's cool to see him, for me personally, that he's
I think their starter's good too, though. They got Aj. I've been high on Aj since he was on that Dorado Gaming team.
Yeah, so PVS has got his best roster ever. I think he would agree with us
for sure.
saying that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I certainly agree with that.
Yeah. I do have, so I guess if we're out of teams,
you got one. We got time for like one more if you want to do one.
I got time. I got one more, but I want you to end the episode right after. Okay?
Okay.
Oh boy.
All right.
What's happening?
All right. So I have to raise my sword for Wardens!
Oh.
I
forgot about Wardens. I did forget about Wardens.
You can do it, Dante.
No, we can't.
Here's the thing, dude. Here's the thing about Wardens.
I believe in Dantes.
When it was Enthralled and Daption and Young throwing their splits away for Dantes, I hated this team. But now that it's just Evanly and Insanes and Realms and Quest just like hanging out with the squad.
Like the ultimate vibe guys.
Yeah, like, and this is no hate on on those players, but like these players would not be. There are not spots on top 8 teams that like were available to these guys. I don't think. Like these guys, maybe they could have been in like a middling team, like a 12th through 20th kind of place team, but abandoning that to come and play on Wardens with Dantes. Sure.
And now
Young
ahead. Is just completely. Now Young is just completely. He was so young.
Yeah. Now he's totally gone. But it's.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Enthralled ended up on a better team. Daption's completely gone too, by the way. But
yeah,
Enthralled ended up on a better team out of it. Daption is a sub on Tempest, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, he is.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
So
yeah.
I don't know. I've kind of come fully around on Wardens now, and now good for these guys. I hope they have fun.
Subs.
I hope they have fun.
They have 5 fucking subs. They have Mims, Sora. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. Sorone,
IYBC.
And
yeah. The funny thing. That's the other funny thing about this team is Sora and IYBC are also on my short list of these are mid laners that I want to see play, and instead Quest is hoarding them all on his sub squad. So. That's a shame. Yeah. You could have just these 5 guys: Mims, Sora, IYBC, Sura and I don't know who Sura and I is, and Elias. I know 4 out of 5 of these players are. Some of them are going to have to off-roll, but these 5 people should just be a team. They would be better than some of the teams that are in this OQ.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, that's all I got to say about that. I lost my voice.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't end the episode right after you did that, but
you didn't ignite the lights, the sword, man.
It's not charged. Fuck.
well, that's a shame. But it's as good a spot as any.
The lightsaber.
It's as good a spot as any to close it out. It's been fun hanging out with everybody. This is just a quick slapdash episode to get ready for OQs kicking off this weekend. It's going to be some real high-low seeded matchups this weekend, but there will be some eliminations. There will be some high stakes.
We're going to story build this weekend.
And there'll be some high stakes. So it's going to be two winner's side matches day 1 and 2 loser's side matches day 2. So you'll get some real eliminations. You'll get some closer matches by the time you're in the second half of the day. You'll have some teams that have made their way, pretty deep in the bracket by the end of day number 1. So there's some knowledge to be gleaned here. There's some fun to be had. So definitely tune in this weekend, and not just for the near airport games, but also for the near airport games, if that's what you're interested in seeing. And
We just want anybody tuning in.
it'll be exciting to come in, check in next week, and see. Surely it'll be some upset somewhere, and that'll definitely be something to talk about. That's the other thing. The seeding being straight rank means that sometimes you accidentally get very close matchups that you would never have gotten in a properly seeded, we'll say committee seeded bracket. So the format giveth and the format taketh away.
Yep. All right.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next week and watch those OQs.